you make.
I've followed Guillermo's films for a long, long time, from his shorts right through to his debut feature, Cronos. And I think the one thing that we can say running through Guillermo's films, from Cronos, Devil's Backbone, Pan's Labyrinth, Blade 2, Mimic, Hellboy, is that he's given us some of the most visceral, powerful and intelligent films in modern cinema. It was interesting how you came to filmmaking, because you studied in Guadalajara and you helped set up, the film societies there, and the university, the festival, which is a fantastic festival. And then you also studied script writing under a very good Mexican director called Jaime Humberto Hermosillo, who you didn't get on too well with, as I understand it.
No, I did get along with him, yeah. The thing is, I think he was very, very strict. I thank him for that. He teaches a screenplay for 3 years. He is truly the basis of everything I do.
Because we wouldn't really have had Cronos if not for him, because as I understand it, you originally wrote The Devil's Backbone, or the script that became The Devil's Backbone, and he didn't like the way it was presented. The margins weren't right, so he threw it in the bin.
He threw it, he ripped it.
Yeah.
I've spent 2 years trying to make it, and he flips through it, and he says, the margins are wrong. He says, come back to me when you are willing to be tidy with your work, and he threw it in the wastebasket. And I go, you know what? I'm not gonna write it again, and I'm not gonna graduate, screw this.
The fallout from Cronos was that the film won over 25 international awards. It's one of the most respected and highly praised Mexican films in many, many years. I remember the film going to Cannes and winning a major prize. And yet, and I don't want to bring up old wounds, your relationship with the Mexican Film Institute, IMCINE, has always been quite troubled. And it seems to me that with Cronos, they were wary of the film because it was a genre film. And they refused to acknowledge it as an art house picture. How did that kind of attitude disappoint you, and how did that also lead to you then taking the opportunity to go and work in America on Mimic?
Well, Cronos was not supported by the Mexican Film Institute. We went to Cannes, and we were all living in, they didn't pay for, obviously, tickets or housing, anything. We were all living in one apartment. I always say that when we were going to Cannes, I tell my wife, should I take 10 posters or 15? Because I didn't know what I imagined a film festival like Guadalajara. And so we arrived, and the promotional budget of Cronos was 15 posters and a roll of Scotch tape. and for anyone that has been at Cannes, then you walk up the crosshead, and it explodes, and it's 500 million movies, a floating Arnold Schwarzenegger from the last, billboards, people with T-shirts, and I just felt, okay, I'm screwed. I'm screwed. We're just going to enjoy the sunshine. And then the Mexican Institute of Film didn't want to throw a party for it. They said, come to the Mexican party if you want. And because they didn't believe in the movie, they didn't believe that there was beauty in horror, which is what I believe. I believe there is poetry in it, in horror, even at its toughest. There are moments of immense power. And when we won, we came back to Mexico. We won 20-something prizes, 9 Academy Awards in Mexico. And I came up with the second screenplay I wanted to direct, which is Devil's Backbone. And they wouldn't help. They would not help still. They said, no. And so I spent 4 years between Cronos and Mimic. And Mimic was meant to be a short film. I said, okay, I'll be in and out, no problem. There you go.
and with me, I mean, you've been very forthcoming on Mimic. I mean, Mimic is a film that I have a lot of time for, but I know you've said that it is a very painful experience. You've said that it's still up there, pricking at your pain threshold. Why was it so painful? Was it parties kind of having a different view on what was wanted? It's
absolutely horrifying what we went through in there, but the reality is I cannot blame anyone except the fact that the only international word that the English language and Mexican and Spanish language have in common, I could not use, which is the word no. No. I came from a place where you made films by having friends, and you joined together and you made a movie. And I come, and to this day, I know that American film the process goes against the product. The more advanced you're in the process, the less and less they want you to control it. So it's extremely frustrating. And you have to fight, and you have to be really quite a prick. And I learned to be a prick and mimic. When it's needed, I can be, and I'm happy to be, because it's not me. I remain a guy that believes, has very little good opinion of himself, but I have to defend the movies that I do, because for good or bad, you may hate them, you may like them, I'm the only one making them.
Your next project, The Devil's Backbone, which, as you said, was actually one of your first scripts. Did it feel like coming home almost, to return to something which you were more familiar with? Was it a kind of release to get away from the mimic experience?
It was a lifesaver, because finally I could do a movie where I could disobey every rule and more, and I would be cherished for it. You know, mimic has the, I think thematically and the screenplay is as crappy as I would have ever had to put up with, because that's where I lost the battles. Every battle I lost in the screenplay. Every battle I won in the look of the film. I managed to make a really dark movie, which was extremely dark, extremely saturated in colors, texturally very beautiful, but the rest I failed. I mean, I really should have defended it better, and but I learned a thing. I learned that in film, in my opinion, the text is in the texture. In film, there is one huge portion of the storytelling that does not happen in the screenplay. You know, there is storytelling done purely with images and sound.
Well, we're now going to talk about Pan's Labyrinth. Mark Kermode wrote very eloquently about the film in the UK in Sight and Sound, and he described it as the Citizen Kane of fantasy cinema. The difference is that people appreciated it during its lifetime. You know, it's fantastically well reviewed, fantastically well rewarded at festivals, and there's some beautiful sequences in the film, and it's unfair to pick one, and we will see a clip in a moment. But when I watched it again, I was very struck by the sequence where the fairy sees Ophelia looking at the book, and she sees what Ophelia thinks the fairy should look like, and the fairy transforms. It's incredibly innocent and incredibly beautiful and quite profound.
But also,
moment.
when people argue with me, is the magic real or isn't real, and certain other Anglo-Saxon logical questions of the 20th century, I must add, because there was a time when Anglo-Saxon logic had more in common with Mexicans in a far more innocent time. I think that the beauty of that moment is its ambivalence. Is the fairy revealing itself to be that way, or is the fairy being imagined by the girl because of the illustration, or is the fairy adopting that image so the girl can understand? You know, the poly value of that moment is what attracted me to writing it that way. And I wrote Pan's Labyrinth the way I wrote Devil's Backbone. There are certain moments in which it could be there is a ghost or is there not a ghost. But I stole blatantly from The Shining, in which the answer is somebody opened that door in Devil's Backbone, so there is a ghost. Because I believe there are ghosts. That's the problem with me. I believe that magic exists, not in the way that one would go at normally, but I believe that the way we see the world, we transform from the inside out. You know, every single act, pain, joy, is absolutely our own making. I believe that. And I think in Pan's Labyrinth, that's the lesson. I say, the girl is the only immortal character in the film, because her right to be that princess cannot be taken even by her physical death. The backstory of the pale man. In an American movie, I would have had a lot of the pale one is really an ogre that eats children. And over for another character saying, yes, but he's vulnerable if you, whatever. And what I think is beautiful is if you watch the movie, whether you know it or not, the backstory is there. It is in the paintings in the room. The room looks like a church. The table is full of food and he doesn't eat it. Nevertheless, there are piles of shoes next to the table that shows what he eats. Every single thing in that room is designed to be a mouth. You know, the chimney is a mouth, the columns are a mouth, the door that she grabs the knife is a mouth, and so on and so forth. Do you register? Do you come back and say, I love how, no, but you do internalize it. You do. The audience does. And when somebody says a character is well drawn or not, based only on the screenplay, I say, the screenplay got in the way of you enjoying the movie. Go watch it again, or not watch it again. God bless. You know, the movie is told by more than just the screenplay. You know, and many a beautiful movie has survived only because of that. You know, the memories, as I said, come back because of the images and the sounds of them. And by the way, all the monsters in my movies is my voice. Like the pale man is me, the fairies is me,
really?
The frog is me, the Cronin is me, and the reapers is me, the insects is me, the bug in Cronos is me. Because I spend a certain amount of time of the ADR time just doing whatever.
Orphanage, which is a film that Guillermo produced, a very fine film by a young director, Juan Antano Bayona. And the thing that you mentioned about your producing work, but you've taken on this responsibility of nurturing and shepherding young talents through to fruition. And I think it's particular to Mexican filmmakers. But Alejandro has done it, Alfonso has certainly done it.
We've done it together.
You've done it together.
Several times.
And you help each other. But what was it about The Orphanage that convinced you that he was a filmmaker that was
Look,
worthy of you?
it's really hard. I think that you help filmmakers by either helping them do their movie or by refusing to do their movie. Either way, you're helping them, because this is survival of the fattest. You know, it's in fact so hard that if rejection screwed you down, you were not going to make it. It's unfortunate. As I said, there are no delicate filmmakers. That's a horrible fact, except perhaps in government-sustained industries, which allowed the fragile filmmaker that languishes to shoot every year. Or, God bless, but in the reality of most of the worlds, you will not survive. It's a mixture of being a stubborn, difficult asshole and a sensible soul, a sensitive soul. So I always say, when I reject a movie, I say, I cannot or will not get involved, but please pay no attention to me. And you have to. The times I got rejected helped me as much as the times I got helped. And what I try to do when I help is I get the money, I get the time, and I get the hell out of there.
So let's see if there are any questions from the audience. And there's somebody right at the back, I'm afraid. Yep.
We've all heard that you're planning to direct The Hobbit.
Yes.
As we know. Could you tell us a little bit about that and how you're planning to do it?
It's the first time I've been asked so many things about something I haven't even started. You know, it's rather curious. But what I think is everybody has every right to ask everything they want to know, no matter what stage we're in. What we know is less than what you want to know. At this stage, the Hobbit is, I'm finishing Hellboy 2, Peter's finishing Lovely Bones. That's, in a nutshell, that's it. So how am I planning to do it? I'd say as damn best as I can, because I love it. But what I can say is The Hobbit was, until last year, the only book of Tolkien I had read, but it captured my imagination at age 11. Right at that time when that membrane is so permeable that it stays with you. And since then, you know, I attempted to read Lord of the Rings at that age. In my case, it was a mistake. I was reading both in English and in Spanish, and the language proved far different from The Hobbit, far more complicated, the geography, the nomenclature. It proved much more alien to me, but it was that love of The Hobbit that brought me in. You know, I remember a moment in, because I'm a guy that likes very little fantasy literature and even less fantasy films, you know, because most of the time, like any literature, it gives birth to a lot of illegitimate children of perfectly respectable families, you know, and what happened to me is I went to see Fellowship out of curiosity because I admired Peter. But I admired the Peter of Heavenly Creatures and Brain Dead. I didn't know what I was going to find. And there is that moment in which the hobbits are hiding from the riders, from the ringwraiths. And they're in the lower part of the frame and the ringwraith is in the back. And I turned to my wife and I said, I am absolutely in wherever we go, whatever he does, I'm in. And something of that sort, something popped there that now allowed me to not only approach the books and read them with fruition. I still like The Hobbit the best myself. It has an attunement with what I think, and is so experimental in so many ways. It's so strange. You know, for those that have read it, I'm sure this is not a spoiler, but so many things are done in a different way than they would be advisable to do. Because he was also, I have something in common when I started this process. I did not know the trilogy of books when I came on board The Hobbit, and neither did Tolkien. He didn't know them either. He wrote the Hobbit and then got to know the others. He created the others in order to know them. So I am going there because I love what Peter has created with Fran and Felipe and the rest, Richard and Weta. They have created what I believe is Hollywood the way God intended it, you know, and I intend to try and forge an extension of a family, you know, and to enjoy myself and to, you know, to do justice and to do honor. I will do it not out of ego, but out of respect, reverence, and passion. So, you know, it's all I can guarantee. The rest is up to so many factors I cannot answer.
Thank you to Guillermo for being here.